around them. And the terrifying part is that most people watching this video have no idea just how close this danger already is to their own front door. This year, 2026, has turned into one of the most brutal heat years humanity has ever recorded. In late May, Europe got hit by a heat wave so early and so intense that meteorologists struggled to find historical comparisons. Belgium, France, Germany, Hungary, Romania, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Poland, Czechia, Denmark, Spain, and the United Kingdom all broke temperature records within days of each other. Temperatures spiked 10 to 15 degrees Celsius above normal. That is not a warm spring afternoon. That is a climate system screaming at us. Then came June, and June made May look like a warm-up round, a second heat wave, continent just before the summer solstice. This time it wasn't just uncomfortable, it became deadly. France recorded around 1,000 excess deaths in a single stretch of extreme heat. Ambulance services responded to more than 122,000 emergency calls during the peak of that heat. Most of the people dying were elderly, or people trapped alone indoors with no way to cool down. And then it got worse again. A heat dome, one of the most extreme ever documented in modern European weather history, parked itself over the continent in the final days of June. France hit a new national June record, D of 44.3 degrees Celsius. The United Kingdom broke its June temperature record 3 days in a row. Germany recorded a brand new national all-time high of 41.5 degrees Celsius, only to have that broken again a day earlier by a different city. Scientists explain this pattern using something called an omega block, where a giant dome of hot air gets trapped and placed by pressure systems on either side, like a lid sealed onto a boiling pot with nowhere for the heat to escape. Here is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Scientists from the World Weather Attribution Group stated plainly that this kind of heat wave, this early in the year, this intense, would have been virtually impossible without human-caused climate change. This isn't a normal weather pattern that happens to be a little worse this year. This is a new baseline. The World Health Organization confirmed that Europe is warming twice as fast as the global average, making it the fastest warming continent on planet Earth. More than 1,300 excess deaths were recorded across Europe in just over a week during the peak of this heat dome. People died in ways that sound almost unbelievable. Children died locked inside hot cars. Young people, desperate for relief, drowned while swimming in unsupervised rivers and lakes. In France alone, at least 74 drowning deaths were reported as people fled to water to escape temperatures their homes simply could not handle. A professional footballer drowned in the Rhone River trying to cool off. Authorities in Berlin deployed water cannons in public squares just to give people a way to survive the heat, spraying crowds like it was a wildfire instead of a public health crisis. And one of the cruelest details in all of this is something most people never think about. Only around 20% of homes across Europe even have air conditioning. Most of the continent's housing was built the opposite way, designed to trap heat in for the cold winters, not release it during killer summers. So when a heat dome like this settles in, millions of people are essentially sealed inside ovens with no way out, and no infrastructure built to save them. Now let's cross the Atlantic, because America is not watching this from a safe distance. As Europe's disaster was unfolding, the United States was walking straight into its own. At the very same time, a massive heat dome spread across the central and eastern United States, arriving right before one of the busiest travel weekends of the year, the 250th anniversary of American independence. Temperatures climbed above 38 degrees Celsius, that's around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, from Boston all the way down to Washington, D.C. And because of humidity, the heat index, meaning what the temperature actually feels like on your skin, pushed as high as 46 degrees Celsius in some areas, that's 100. And 14 degrees Fahrenheit of raw, punishing heat pressing down on major American cities. Here's where it gets even scarier. This heat didn't just threaten people directly, it threatened the entire system that keeps people alive during extreme heat, the power grid. PJM Interconnection, the largest regional power grid operator in the United States, covering 13 states and Washington, D.C., forecasted electricity demand so high it was projected to break an all-time record that had stood since 2006. The Department of Energy had to issue emergency orders just to keep the lights, and more importantly, the air conditioners running. These orders allowed grid operators to force massive data centers to switch to backup generators, freeing up power for our regular homes. Think about that for a second. The demand for electricity to survive extreme heat has grown so intense that it is now colliding directly with the explosive energy needs of artificial intelligence data centers. Two invisible crises fighting over the exact same power lines. And when the grid strains, it doesn't just flicker, it fails. More than 100,000 customers lost power across the United States in a single day during this heat wave, with over 167,000 outages reported the night before that. Losing power during a heat wave. isn't a minor inconvenience like it would be in winter. It is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a human body because it strips away the one thing standing between a person and heat stroke, which is air conditioning. And that danger multiplies at night because your body actually needs cooler nighttime temperatures to recover from a hot day. If the power goes out overnight during a heat wave, doctors say the body simply never gets the chance to reset. This is not some rare freak occurrence anymore. Researchers have found that heatwave-related power outages across the eastern United States increased between 1.6 and nearly 6 times over just 2 decades. And here's a fact that should honestly make you angry. Extreme heat is still not officially classified as a major disaster under federal disaster law in the United States. That means the Federal Emergency Management Agency has no legal authority to respond to a heat wave, even though heat kills more Americans every year than hurricanes do. Hurricanes get emergency declarations. Heat waves, statistically the deadlier threat, get almost nothing. And the death numbers back this up in a way that's hard to ignore. Heat-related deaths in the United States nearly doubled between 1999 and 2024, climbing from just over 1,000 deaths a year to close to 2,400. A major medical study published in JAMA found that over 21,000 Americans died from heat-related causes between 1999 and 2023. And one of the most important lessons from heat disaster history is this: the deadliest heat waves are not always the hottest ones. The famous 1995 Chicago heat wave killed 739 people in just 5 days, and its peak temperature wouldn't even crack the top 50 hottest readings ever recorded in states like Arizona or Texas. What made it so lethal was that nighttime temperatures never dropped low enough for people's bodies to recover. Heat that lingers through the night is often more dangerous than heat that simply peaks during the day. Meanwhile, wildfires are compounding this crisis even further. As the heat dome gripped the central and eastern United States, deadly wildfires exploded across the West. 3 firefighters lost their lives battling a fast-moving fire in western Colorado after flames cut off their escape routes. This is the terrifying reality of a warming climate. Heat waves and wildfires no longer arrive as separate disasters. They arrive together, feeding off the same dry conditions and stacking danger on top of danger. There's also an economic side to this crisis that rarely makes headlines. During the European heatwave, day-ahead power prices in Germany jumped nearly 30% in a single day, driven by soaring cooling demand combined with lower wind power generation. In France, the government had to allocate more than 130 million euros just to install cooling systems in schools and nurseries after the heat exposed how unprepared public buildings were. Extreme heat even warped train tracks in Sweden, causing a 600-meter freight train to derail. Entire industries are quietly being reshaped by temperatures that used to be considered rare exceptions and are now becoming the new normal. And it isn't just Europe and America. This is a global pattern now. Scientists at the United Nations World Meteorological Organization released a report stating there is a 75% chance the average global temperature between 2026 and 2030 will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the very threshold the entire world agreed to try to avoid under the Paris Climate Agreement. Even worse, there is an 86% chance that at least one of the next 5 years will break the current global heat record. Climate scientists are now openly debating whether global warming itself is accelerating faster than their previous models predicted, and if that's true, everything you just heard in this video could end up looking mild compared to what's coming. So why is nobody truly ready for this? Part of it is infrastructure. Homes in Europe were built for cold winters, not deadly summers. Part of it is policy, since heat waves in America still don't legally count as the kind of disaster that triggers federal emergency response. And part of it is human psychology. A hurricane looks terrifying on camera, with wind-ripping roofs off buildings. A heat wave just looks like a slightly too bright, slightly too still summer day. It doesn't look like a killer, but it is one of the deadliest natural disasters on the entire planet. And it is getting worse every single year, quietly, without the dramatic visuals that usually make people pay attention. If you learned even one shocking fact from this video, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. And if you want more deep dives like this one, breaking down the real data behind the disasters shaping our world, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The uncomfortable truth is that extreme heat has quietly become one of the most underestimated threats facing our species. It doesn't knock down buildings. It doesn't rip through cities on camera. It simply raises the temperature day after day, night after night, until the human body, the power grid, the systems we rely on all start to fail at the exact same time. Europe just lived through it. America is living through it right now. And climate scientists are telling us, in plain language, that the years immediately ahead of us are very likely to be even hotter. This is not a distant future problem anymore. This is happening in real time, in major cities, to real families, while most of the world scroll-s past it without a second thought. So the next time someone tells you it's just a hot day, remember the numbers you just heard. Remember the excess deaths, the overwhelmed hospitals, the failing power grids, and the fact that scientists have run out of ways to describe how unprecedented this all is. Nobody is truly ready for this heat wave. And based on everything the data is showing us right now, the next one might be even worse.